if you're on the call while we're waiting to get started.
Conference record has joined the conference.
My name
If anybody's, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Elkie Simmons. I'm a licensed mental health counselor.
Hi,
where are you from?
Kelly.
I am employed right now at the Broward County Courthouse.
Excellent.
Yay! Hi, this is Kelly Gunning from NAMI, Lexington, Kentucky, and we are about 1 month away from starting a mental health court in Lexington. So I'm very interested.
Hello. Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Oh, okay, sorry. I'm Charlotte Spindle. I'm a licensed clinical social worker, lead social worker in the Public Defender's Office in Mecklenburg County.
Excellent.
So,
yes, this is Valerie Mudd with NAMI Lexington. I'm working with Kelly Gunning to start a mental health court in Lexington.
This is Catherine McCleary, Washtenaw County Treasurer, Ann Arbor, Michigan, and NAMI, Washtenaw, Michigan.
Go blue. Now, before we get into the conversation, there's many more people on the call. I'm going to ask everyone to please hit *6 to mute themselves. This will just help with background noise, barking dogs, additional phone ringing. I'm going to ask everyone to please not put us on hold. That is sort of the third rail of this very low-tech conference call that we do. So when you want to ask a question of our guest today, just hit *6 and #6. I'm sorry. That will bring you back into the conversation. Our call is recorded, and all these calls are available at www.nami.org/askthedoctor. So today we're very fortunate to have Judge Ginger Lerner-Wren, who has become a national leader in the whole area of, I would say, humane jurisprudence through the mental health court work that she has pioneered in Broward County. And without further ado, I just want to thank her for all the work she's done nationally to change this equation, and also for giving us an hour of her time. And we hope you become a regular on the Friday call, which is a little beautiful thing we do at NAMI, where we bring all the experts, really to the membership to give them the best evidence and experience. So with that, I'll ask you to take it away, and let's leave about 40 minutes or so for questions. So if you could do 15 or 20 minutes, Judge Wren.
Thanks. I did script it out, Dr. Duckworth, just so I can stay, me, kind of focused. So if I tend to drift off a little too long and you want me to stop, just tell me.
Oh, I'll do it. My life is a series of drifting off, so I'll do my best to attend. I'll do my best to attend to the time, because we do want, people don't have a chance to talk to you every day. So if you will introduce the topic, and then we'll do a chaotic Q&A. And thanks again, and welcome.
Thank you so much, and it's such a thrill to be here. Thank you all. First of all, for calling in and participating. Broward's Mental Health Court is turning 17 years old in June. We have diverted more than 16,000 individuals with mental illness and related neurological disorders out of Broward's jail. And I'm just, again, so grateful to everybody. Just a shout out to those from Broward County that may be joining us. Mental health courts are so well accepted. Broward's model spurred Congress to pass the National Mental Health Demonstration Act of 2000, which actually passed Congress unanimously. It's almost unheard of in this day. And, of course, President Clinton signed the bill just as he was leaving office. These courts applied in so many different ways and on various levels now are exceedingly popular and evidence-based. They're even the springboard for our wonderful and important veterans courts. But of course,
this is the operator. Does someone need assistance?
Yeah, hi. I'd like to get in on the conversation.
Oh, hi. Well, the way we do it is that our expert, Judge Ginger Lerner-Wren, will be talking for 15 or 20 minutes to introduce the topic. We ask all of our listeners to do *6, that will mute you, to help with audio quality. At the end of her talk, we open it up for questions. So that would be #6. and then we do our best to get everybody's questions in to our expert. So thank you. Thank you, operator.
You're welcome.
Thank you, operator.
You're welcome.
But of course, system change is never easy, and sustaining that change over the long haul is even more challenging. So I thought today I might talk about leading social change a bit and about how the court came about, and even, if you don't mind, some more interior issues that I really don't get a chance to discuss too often. So in case you all don't know, and I wouldn't suspect that you would know, before I came to the bench, I was a public interest lawyer, clearly interested in law reform. I was heavily influenced by the work of the late, iconic law professor Bruce Winnick, who was a dear, dear friend of mine from the University of Miami School of Law, and who, along with law professor David Wexler, pioneered the philosophy of therapeutic jurisprudence, or as Dr. Duckwood says, humane jurisprudence. Professor Winnick dedicated his law career to lawyering for social change through legal scholarship. I became aware of the legal reform philosophy when I was a lawyer, and it would be through my breakthrough position at the time as public guardian for Broward County. This role required a vast understanding of elder law, mental health, and disability law, together with every other conceivable subject relevant to taking care of the health, safety, and social and economic welfare of adults who were deemed by our probate court to require guardianship, but who had no family and who was indigent. I would be their legal guardian. I administrated the program. I had a small, fabulous staff of compassionate case managers, and in addition, I even handled my own caseload. One day, I attended a mental health law conference on therapeutic jurisprudence, and I'm sure many of you know the wonderful Dr. John Petrilla from the University of South Florida Mental Health Institute, and he was there speaking about the horrific trend of the criminalization of the mentally ill, and I have to admit I was absolutely shocked. At that time, I was a rather young and new public interest lawyer just recently appointed to this job. And I remember looking around the conference to see if I was like the only one having this really strong reaction, but it seemed like everyone else was kind of just listening. So I left the conference, and I did decide that I would apply TJ to my guardianship clients who were desperately in need of humane and empathic connection, and I continued in that role for about a year. It was a fabulous learning experience, admittedly very, very stressful. I could definitely say it was law in action. And that year was 1993, and at that time I received a call from a dear friend asking if I'd be interested in applying for a new position, this time at the Advocacy Center for Persons with Disabilities. That is Florida's protection and advocacy system. I think now it has a name like Florida Disability Rights. And it was led by then retired Circuit Drug Court Judge Marcia Beach. They were looking for someone with close ties to the community, with strong communication skills, to assume the role of the plaintiff's monitor in a pending federal lawsuit over our local state psychiatric hospital. And did I know anything about mental health? Actually, the answer was no. But I knew from my work at the Public Guardian's Office that a number of families who had come to my office were seeking help for their families in need of mental health treatment and services, and so I was really interested. Within weeks, I was the plaintiff's monitor for the case of Sanborn versus Childs. Sanborn was the name of Deirdre Sanborn, the first of 9 named plaintiffs, and Childs was the name of Florida's former governor. Little did I know that this very highly controversial consent decree that I was going to help monitor was extremely controversial, and the community was really not pleased with this particular decree, and the position was time limited. So anyway, I went forward. I opened up an office within a mile or so from the state hospital, which at the time had 355 beds. It served a huge area of South Florida, and 50% of my time was spent monitoring the implementation of this decree, overseeing individuals' discharge planning from the hospital into the community in order to assess and evaluate the adequacy of the plans and identify major community system gaps in our system of care. The other 50% of my time was as a PAMI, P-A-I-M-I attorney. That was enforcing federal civil rights protections on behalf of persons with serious mental illness. People often ask me when we first began Broward's Mental Health Court, Judge, how did you know what to do? Well, this is how I knew what to do. It was a crash course in every discipline and subject matter you could think of related to mental health disability law, discharge planning, systems of care analysis and capacity building, abuse and neglect, mental health policy, civil rights, and, of course, the consumer movement. I had to know the works. The big bonus, however, was I was trained and worked with some of the finest and most talented mental health advocates and legal practitioners in the country, including exceptional PAMI advocates and cutting-edge experts in psychiatric rehabilitation out of the fabulous Boston University model, and legendary national leaders in the consumer movement. It was an advocate's dream. So until it was time to move on, and monitors do have a shelf life, I then decided to run for election for judge. So this is a great place to pause just for a moment. What was I going to do with all this specialized knowledge if I was lucky enough to win that election? How many of our listeners today believe in faith? What would be the chances that at the same time I was running for judge, Broward County's criminal justice system was going through its own metamorphosis? A new consciousness that drove now Broward County Public Defender Howard Finkelstein and Broward Circuit Judge Mark Spicer to assemble an ad hoc mental health criminal justice task force to identify ways to improve our local criminal justice system for persons arrested with mental illness. While our task force met, I ran for office with tasty gingerbread cookies, seasonal spiced, iced Little Debbies. As the election qualification period drew near, magically, the Florida legislature funded a new judicial seat, and I jumped into that new seat, and it was far too late for any challenger to mount a campaign, and I was elected without any opposition. The task force now knew I was coming, and Howard, being Howard, decided that the task force solution was going to be creating a specialized court. "Congratulations," the chief judge said. "You are now our new mental health court judge. When would you like to start?" I was thrilled. I was already assigned to a criminal division at our main courthouse, a role, quite frankly, I knew very little about. The mental health court would be in addition to my regular court division, and then I made my first major judicial decision. I picked up the phone and I called for help. Yep, you guessed it, my first call was to the University of Miami law professor, Bruce Winnick. I shared with him plans for the new court. He was amazingly generous and supportive. I explained the vision of the court. It would be based wholly on a therapeutic philosophy. It would use the highly successful drug court as a model of sorts, except this court would be deemed a human rights strategy. It would be comprised of values and a hierarchy of fidelities that sustain to this day. The mental health court would be highly individualized and voluntary. Diversion was its main goal, with public safety being a paramount consideration, with no funding but a community that through the years of participation on a task force shared the vision. For the first time, a judge would stand up against the tide of criminalization and use procedural justice to funnel individuals with mental illness arrested on misdemeanor offenses out of jail with linkages to community-based care. Using the perceived authority of the court, we would stitch together existing treatment resources in a severely underfunded and broken system of care to promote system accountability to those individuals we were serving. The press called my appointment to this innovative court a perfect fit. So let's talk for a moment about the challenges of organizational change. According to now retired Harvard Business School management guru John Kotter, nothing fails more often than attempts at organizational change. And this was not simply one organization. This was a number of independent, highly bureaucratic systems which needed to agree to change their own operations and procedures in order to get into alignment to achieve the diversionary goals of the new court. This included the Broward County Jail System, State Attorney's Office, Public Defender's Office, our Clerk's Office, all of our community providers, local acute care receiving hospitals, and every organization across systems needed to come together. It was a massive exercise in system persuasion, negotiation, and transformation. And then there was the stigma. For months, I couldn't find a court deputy willing to serve in the mental health court. Judges and lawyers at the time were whispering and laughing about the new court. Dogma needed to change, and it did. With the help of a massive media onslaught, news of the new mental health court bubbled up in what seemed like a nanosecond. And remember, there was no social media back then. All forms of media moved into the court every day. There were journalists, CNN, delegations, and visitors from around the world were coming to see what we were doing. The courtroom was converted to a medical triage. Henderson Behavioral Health Center lent us a case manager. Community clinicians would help us. Anyone with expertise was called out to help us until Howard, again, thankfully, finally got the state to agree to hire a court clinician. Janice Blendon, a highly talented licensed clinical social worker that I met while monitoring at the state hospital, was coming off maternity leave and agreed to join our team. She was and remains an essential core member of the court, a collaboration that we jokingly call ourselves the Lennon and McCartney of the mental health court in terms of how well we complement each other. The courtroom would become the theater where pain, sorrow, shame of the plight of mental illness would shift to hope, all taking place during our lunch hours. I had to do it over our lunch hours because I had my regular division to oversee. Fortunately, systems were working. Our stakeholders made the needed changes in order to get swift jail diversion. The court presumed trauma. Communication, tone, and every message was carefully weighed and stated to build trust, focus on strengths, and reduce stigma. Power would be shared in a way that was actually startling to our court participants. What can this court do for you? Is a consistent opening question. People who had never been treated with respect, those who were homeless, cycling, subject to dehumanizing conditions and treatment, were now being treated with dignity and respect. How can we help? Tell us your story. Do you get disability? Do you take medicine? Do you have a place to live? Procedural justice in this therapeutic court was aimed at empathic connection. Traditional court process would be turned inside out and upside down, and psychoeducation together with the rule of law would coexist side by side. As soon as the feds came in, the next campaign would begin. I have to say thank you to my children who were very young at the time. They not only endured the disruptions of a political campaign, and now we were engaged in a different kind of national campaign. What were we doing and how were we doing it? A new set of controversy would begin. Were mental health courts appropriate? For the next several years, myself and many of our local mental health court leaders traveled across the U.S., sharing our vision and the workings of our human rights-oriented court. Broward's mental health court was not a program. It has significant differences from a drug court because it is not a crime to be mentally ill. And we strongly believe that our court design needed to strictly adhere to the values, principles, and goals of decriminalization. Former Congressman Ted Strickland and former Senator DeWine of Ohio got their legislation passed, and federal funding for collaborative criminal justice therapeutic strategies continues on. Since we began, hundreds of mental health courts and related diversionary and reentry strategies have come online. A second generation of felony mental health courts emerged. Broward has a felony mental health court as well. Problem-solving therapeutic courts are increasingly popular as jurisdictions around the country and internationally appreciate the power and efficiencies of social justice innovation through strategic collaboration. We've experienced many highlights over the years. I was honored to be appointed to the President's New Freedom Commission to chair its Criminal Justice Subcommittee. Human Rights Watch spent several days with us and recommended Broward's court as a proactive strategy to avoid further escalation of imprisonment in its special report, Ill-Equipped, in 2003. And 6 months ago, Broward's court was the top vote-getter and selected as top finalist by the Hill Foundation at The Hague. where Janice and I were honored to travel to the Global Center of Human Rights and Justice to participate in the Innovative Justice Awards and honored for our successful innovation. The future of problem-solving justice and smart justice and humane justice is more than bright. The scholarly work of law reformers like Professors Winnick, Wexler, and others, in my view, have been nothing short of revolutionary. Now, I could talk a little bit about the vision for the future, Doctor, but I'm thinking maybe we should stop.
I think let's open it up to questions, because the opportunity to talk, with really one of the visionaries of an entire field. So we're going to take advantage of that. So if you wouldn't mind just saying your first name, where you're from, and just sing out a question. We'll just do our best, acknowledging that it'll be a little chaotic, but hang in there with us.
You bet.
Long Island.
Go ahead.
Yeah, hi. I totally
agree.
Hi, how are you?
Hey.
I've seen these mental health courts. I live in Long Island, Suffolk County, and I've witnessed one firsthand. I think it's a wonderful thing where they're monitored. These judges specialize in this. And, I've also been the parent advocate for Sagamore Children's Psychiatric Hospital on Long Island, for the past 3 years, and I've seen a lot of the kids going through the criminal justice system. And I do agree with you. We have about 68% of the jails are flooded with people with mental illnesses, and, I know at this point we're fighting very hard to keep these hospitals open in Long Island because they're looking to shut them down and saying that we're abusing people by keeping them in intake programs. But anyway, with that said, I admire all that you've done for everything, but I have a question, and it's a little bit out of here, but it's a little bit in here. Your discussion caught my interest, and I'll tell you, I have a son with pervasive development disorder, and he has severe cognitive impairment, but he has 100 IQ, so he presents himself very well. He went up to New Hampshire with his girlfriend's mother's car, ended up getting arrested, but here's the thing. I have full legal guardianship of him, and they would not honor it at all. End of story. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. Nothing. How does that work? When you have legal guardianship of somebody, they let my son do all the
I can't. First of all, I'm from Nassau County. I just want to tell you that. When I was younger, so I love Suffolk County. I could only say, how we treat legal guardianship, and of course, we appreciate and understand what that means, and it means a lot. I really don't. I couldn't tell you how or why a court and or the attorneys wouldn't advocate that the legal guardian, needs to play a pivotal role. In any kind of court case where particularly, legal competency issues could be at stake. So it's baffling to me, really.
So is there any redress that you would suggest, Judge Wren? I mean, should she talk to the disability lawyers in her state? Like, what's a way for her to work the problem before we go on to another question?
Oh, I think she can work the problem. I think that she could send a certified copy, for example, of the orders of letters of guardianship, to the chief judge. You could do it to the chief judge of that circuit. You can do it to the attorneys. I don't know if your son was appointed a public defender. You can certainly reach out to the Protection and Advocacy Agency in New Hampshire and have them try to intervene. But, you could really use, we all know, and at NAMI, we're just, fantastic advocates. You can use every single, method to work this, but clearly you have legal standing. You have legal standing in my view. So I think it could be more of just educating the judge.
Well, the whole situation is over. They would not speak with me. They would not tell me they wouldn't speak with me.
Was it over? Let me ask you this: was it over in a reasonable fashion, or is there some, collateral consequences that need to be responded to?
Well, what ended up happening was my son kept on saying, I'm guilty, I'm guilty, I'm guilty. And they allowed him to plead guilty, to plead to this felony, which he was so excited about because, he was just excited about it. And
how long ago was that?
Oh, it was about a year and a half. I've been going back with the district attorney's office. I've been going back with the district attorney's office in New Hampshire. I went to the.
Well, if there, my view on this is if it involves anything as serious as what you're saying, then I definitely think it's worthy of actually getting legal counsel involved. An individual who not only understands criminal defense work, but quite frankly also understands the implication of a legal guardianship. And I recognize that these two fields don't necessarily, coalesce, but certainly there are lawyers with that kind of knowledge base.
Right. Well,
I do think it's serious enough.
Yeah, it does sound like it. All right, I want to make sure we get a variety of questions in.
It's not a problem. Thank you so much for your time. And thank
you and good luck.
Thank you.
Another question on mental health courts for Judge Ginger Lerner-Wren.
Judge Wren?
Yes?
This is Kelly Gunning from NAMI, Lexington, Kentucky. And
hi.
Hi. When I introduced myself, we are starting a volunteer mental health court, much along the trajectory that you did following a task force led by NAMI Lexington of community leadership and deciding that we definitely needed a mental health court in our county.
Excellent.
One of the questions that I have for you is, along with everyone in this country, we're seeing the closing of psychiatric facilities and the narrowing of access to services, as well as funding depletion in all areas of mental health services. One of the reasons we were spurred to act in Fayette County in Lexington, Kentucky, was because we can't get people into the hospital that we do have here. And when we do, because we have Medicaid managed care, the stays are so short that people are coming right back out, and the recidivism starts, and they're cycling street, jail, hospital. So I was wondering what effect has having the mental health court in Broward County. Have you been able to make sure that people receive humane and timely and appropriate care through the hospitals and through your mental health system? How are you able to I guess, impact that?
There's a lot of nuances to the advocacy that actually encompasses that kind of what we would call system tension. A lot of it, first of all, a lot of it has to do with your task force. And the one question I would ask is, were your acute care facility, people, the ones, that really make decisions, were they a part of your task force?
Yes, these were all top people. These were the chiefs of police, the directors of the
right, but I'm talking about with your hospitals.
Yes.
Okay. Well, first of all, relationship matters. Relationship really matters when it comes to this kind of accountability and service provision. And if you do have positive, respectful relationships with, these hospital administrators or clinicians, for example, or doctors, that really should go a long way. Now, remember that acute care facilities, and Dr. Duckworth, you could please correct me if I misspeak. Acute care facilities are typically stabilization types of units, and they do not, because of all the utilization review limitations. I mean, we also, get people kind of revolving too quickly in and out. Then the question becomes, and I don't know what kind of personality and how technically knowledgeable your new mental health court judge is going to be. But you know something? I used to send them back to the hospital. I mean, we really took a very, very tough approach when individuals did not receive the kind of care and treatment that they needed. And don't forget, my court is guided by a very, very, competent clinician who has Baker Act or Involuntary Civil Commitment Authority of her own under the laws of the state of Florida. So we've managed, to at times, to really work this through, and there have been a few times where, we couldn't lever them back in, but we would then go to a different level of strategy. A lot of this is strategy. I have to tell you the truth. We can talk. You can have your mental health court judge call me, and I'm happy to go over different types of strategies and tactics.
Wow, great. He's well-versed in mental health. He's very passionate and very committed to doing this.
Then he will do a fantastic job, and I'm thrilled to hear it.
We also have the prosecutor and the defenders on board, so I'm very hopeful, and I may have Judge Wilkie call you.
Absolutely.
Great. Thank you very much.
You bet.
That's a nice offer. Another question for Judge Wren today, please.
This is John Tanner from Idaho Falls. Can you hear
Go ahead,
me?
Don.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Do you keep outcome measures? Do you tabulate data on recidivism from your mental health courts?
Yes. As a matter of fact, we had some really great data on recidivism. We kind of fell off the data ladder, so to speak, when we lost some of our support staff because of budget cuts in our court administrator's office. But when we were formally evaluated, the MacArthur Foundation, together with USF Mental Health Institute, did a long-term, multi-year study on the mental health court. That was followed up ultimately by the Rand Corporation doing an economic impact study on the Allegheny, Pennsylvania mental health court, and that was followed up by multi-site study out of the Gaines Center with Hank Stedman. But in mental health court, what we found is our recidivism rate, believe it or not, was floating somewhere around 12%, a little bit higher when we had co-occurring disorders. We were really doing extraordinarily well.
What sort of time period was this recidivism rate pertain to?
Oh gosh, I think that was probably over a period. I'm guessing now of about 6-7 years.
12% over 6-7 years.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, that's amazing.
Thank you. Yeah, we are amazing.
Another question.
Anybody else?
Hello, this is Charlize Spindle with Mecklenburg County. I wanted to ask a question about where did the funding come from for your the LCSW that you said you had that was assigned specifically to your program?
That it came from the state of Florida, the Department of Children and Families. And everything comes so hard. I don't know if y'all know, but Florida is 49th funded, and my guess is when the next rating comes out, I wouldn't be surprised if we slip to 50, as the state of Texas has really infused itself this past year with some really large amount of mental health funds. And they've been doing that strategically over the course of a number of years. So we're a large state, we're a complicated state, we are a highly diverse state, and we have just a huge, population of underserved individuals. So we really struggle here, and our public defender at the time really had, quite frankly, to shame the Secretary of the Department of Children and Families to get him to fund us a clinician.
I had one more question, if I could. Right now, with our mental health court, we seem to be experiencing just a decrease in referrals. I'm just wondering, with your mental health court there, do you ever see that trend, and how do you keep it, I guess, in the forefront of the attorneys and judges' mind to know this is a valuable option?
You know, when we first, I saw that. That's a great question. I saw that from time to time. I don't, I guess the good news then is I don't see that anymore. I mean, we are like just overwhelmed, particularly with a lot of individuals who are homeless, and our cities have got our city where the courthouse sits is actually Fort Lauderdale, and I love Fort Lauderdale. I mean, it is growing. It is gorgeous. Please come, and if you do come, I hope you'll come to the mental health court and sit with me. But we have some very strong what you would describe really as anti-homeless laws here. And so, but in the beginning, if I ever did see that maybe our numbers were falling off, I would just go ahead and I would put a call into the jail, and I would talk to the head of our mental health unit. And I would say, hey, do y'all have anybody that you need to send over? Are you making sure that are you doing your referrals timely?
I do, but you can.
If you can pick it up, I appreciate it.
Okay.
I'm sorry?
Obviously, I'm running way behind.
I think there's somebody else talking, but I was listening to you just said that you contact the jails and reach out.
I just pick up the phone, just pick up the phone. And call over. Do you have a mental health unit in your jail?
Yeah, yes we do.
Because that would be the place if they needed to. If they were there, that's going to be the place that you would call and say, do you have anybody for us? What's happening? I'm worried about the referrals. They seem to have kind of slacked off.
Wonderful suggestion. Thank you.
You bet.
Another question. Go ahead.
Hello. Can you hear me? This is Gil Mateer in Berwyn, Pennsylvania.
Go ahead, Gil.
Hi, Gil.
I have two questions. One is, can you give me a sense for the level of training that the police have? And then I have a follow-up question to that. And I'm specifically referring to this incident in St. Louis you may have seen. Where somebody who was clearly challenged was being beaten with batons by the policemen process.
Yeah, that's a great question. When we first, when the task force was meeting, and they met in Broward County, the Mental Health Criminal Justice Task Force, for a number of years. There was no political will to start a CIT program at the time, and I was for many years traveled, almost not together, but seemed like we were together. Sam Cochran and I, during the many years of our national campaign, and that CIT model is so important. So at the time that we started, we did not have an active CIT model throughout our county, and our county is about, I think, 1.5 million. Purportedly, they're training. They've got a lot of CIT officers trained now, and that's what I hear, and that's what my local NAMI is telling me. I have not yet seen any real decrease in the incarcerated rate, but I do know that, we are certainly in a much better position now, it sounds like, than we were years ago.
And that's good to hear. And then my follow-up question, because I think that there can be never enough training on that front. And again, my goal would be to safeguard the police force because they're safeguarding us. But to try to do that in a informed manner where they are informed about, illnesses and how they can impact how a person responds. And wielding a baton doesn't work. But my follow-up question is, are you seeing much contributions to, let's say, university law schools trying to expand the awareness and the ability to defend when there is a mental health issue?
That's a great question. I really think that depends on the focus of the law schools. So, for example, I don't know if you were on the teleconference earlier, but I was talking about I'm an amazing scholar and law professor who passed away 2 years ago, Bruce Winnick, just a dear friend of mine. And they had a very, very strong social justice core, and they actually started an institute of therapeutic jurisprudence. Another example is the amazing New York University Law School. That's not NYU. This is the other New York University Law School that sits in Tribeca, where Professor Michael Perlin, another dear friend of mine, teaches, and I was formerly an adjunct there. They have a very, very strong mental health social justice core. And so I really think it kind of runs, with the universities themselves.
Yes, and we have seen contributions to Villanova, which is right near us, of millions of dollars to try to get more funding and education in this arena. And I'll make one last statement, and you may have seen this, but as I'd like to thank you for your passion around this, because we can't have too many of you that have great passion in trying to help this out. And the one thing that I've seen in terms of helping people with these illnesses is that exercise can be a wonderful, wonderful thing to help them along. And I hope that if you haven't looked into it, I hope that people look into that and see the benefits that it can really have for not only people without an illness, but also people with.
We periodically do the Friday.
That nutrition and faith and artwork and music and dance. It's all good.
We periodically cover aerobic exercise on the Friday call, so just follow the listserv. Yeah, periodically. We try to cover everything that's important. Really we do. So we have time for a couple more questions today.
Judge Wren?
Go ahead.
Yes.
This is Kelly Gunning again from Lexington, Kentucky, and I'm wondering, do you administer the AOT, the assisted outpatient treatment in your community?
No, that was left in the state of Florida as an unfunded mandate. It never got implemented. We do not have it.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
Judge Wren, while people are thinking of their last question, what resources, websites, or books or articles would you refer them to, and my faithful teammate Emily could attach to the recording of this call? If people wanted to learn more about therapeutic jurisprudence, about your work in mental health courts, about what has happened in Broward County under your leadership, what sort of references would you recommend people turn to?
What a great question. Well, first of all, I do have a Wikipedia site under my name, Judge Ginger Lerner-Wren. Also, which does need a little bit of an update, there is a law review article that is online from Nova Southeastern Shepherd Broad Law Center. And it's a white paper that I really like it. I think it really talks about just, this amazing revolution and acceleration in therapeutic or restorative justice or humane justice or smart justice. There's so many terms of art now for these problem-solving strategies. And along with a wonderful health law professor last year, we did a public health law summit that was just extraordinary. This NOVA Law Review that you'll see, you can go to NOVA Law Review. It actually is their first essay, their first article of a brand new online law review that they just started 2 weeks ago. And I like it a lot. It's fun. You can hyperlink to other policy papers, and I think it gives you a really nice sense of the extraordinary pace and the creativity of problem-solving innovation that's going on. That's quite frankly leapt over, the boundaries of courts and, moved into the communities by judges and legal actors and clinicians in just fabulous ways. So it is, you can find it, you can attach it, and it's called a white paper by me on a public health law summit.
Excellent. Do you have other resources, or it sounds like that covers a lot of the waterfront?
It covers a lot. I mean, there probably are others, and there's some other articles on my Google site, but I kind of like that one, and it's easy. Yeah.
Excellent.
Read.
Could I ask a question?
We have time for one more question, I think, one or two. Go ahead.
Yes, this is Martha Tanner in Idaho, and we are very interested in the law the bill that Representative Murphy has, 3717, and wonder what the judge thinks about that. We're very concerned because it seems that there is going to be
comment on that, if you don't mind. I'd rather not comment on that.
Oh, you're not for it, or?
Doctor, help me out.
Well, I think
I'm taking the press.
It's a pretty controversial source of legislation. I wonder if we could maybe we could have a call devoted to that. Right. From a policy perspective, the risks and benefits of that perspective, because it's a lot to ask, a person to give an answer on the fly, because there's many pieces in it that are positive, but many pieces that are quite controversial. And I think, it has the capacity to divide the NAMI community. So I think it's wise for the judge to defer for her last fame with NAMI. At this point, I'd like to ask everybody to hit #6 and sing out a thank you to one of our leaders really in the whole nation in mental health leadership and thoughtfulness, and just sing out a thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Very informative.
Thank you, Judge
so
Wren.
much, and I love NAMI, and thank you so much.
Well, we